So with my whole New Zealand adventure that I've been sharing about on this channel, we've tackled some very new to me and this channel projects, such as weaving a bunch of fabric and figuring out that process, and then working with leather and making that. And the next part is working with chainmail and the complexity of metal and not fabric. But I decided it was maybe time for just some good old-fashioned sewing only video, or just one video at least. We're gonna talk about this project, which is Susan's battle look, is what I call it, or battle outfit from the movie Prince Caspian, and that's what the leatherwork and the chainmail is for. But there are some fabric components to that outfit, and so we're going to take it way back, flashback to when I was working on all my New Zealand projects, and look at the few fabric parts of this outfit. So watch along. You've got a red skirt with some gold details along the bottom, and then also an underskirt. This underskirt is probably pants based on other Susan looks, especially the purple dress. That skirt is a confirmed underpants with like a panel that kind of disguises the pants. Lucy has the same look. So that just, I think, follows along the theme of what they wanted for Susan, especially because this is a battle outfit and they would obviously want mobility. The dress itself goes all the way up and is like a dress with sleeves that you can see through the chainmail, and then also when she picks up her sleeve and all that. At first, based on research done by Wardrobe Door, it used to be a really helpful website. You have the wordage, but you can't click on any of the photos. Their theory was the top part of the dress and the outer skirt was a dress, and then there was underpants underneath that. But my theory is actually that it could be separate, I don't know. Could be a bodice and underpants of the same fabric, and then an outer skirt of the red wool. The underpants are a different fabric than the outer red wool skirt. You can kind of see the difference here in some of these photos. And I don't know if it's still a wool or not. I've decided to go with a linen because I couldn't find anything that was like a thinner wool or a wool silk. And I don't think it's just pure silk because it's not shiny enough for that. But anyway, you can see that kind of sheen and the slightly different color. But then you compare that to what you see in the undersleeve and like through the bodice. And I think it looks similar to the underskirt material and not the outer skirt material. Because the outer skirt is a slightly different color, but also you can tell it's a thicker material. But that's my current theory of this project. Let's go on and make it. The first part is making a pair of secret pants. The pattern for these pants are the same as the blue underpants for the purple dress that I made of Susan's, just without that front panel. For the waistband, I opted for a simple bias cut bound edge using some scrap pieces from other projects. And to finish it up, just one button at the back. The rest of the closure is left open since the outer skirt will cover it. The last thing is just a basic rolled hem. The next part is an undershirt. The upper portion is made of the same linen as the pants, but since I was running out of fabric, I found a random fabric in the stash to finish off the length of the shirt to allow it to be tucked into the underpants. For the neckline, I bound the edge with bias binding, and I even went super easy and didn't even fold in the back raw edge of the binding. I just left it hanging there raw. With this type of fabric and it being bias cut, it's not fraying, so why not just leave it? Can you believe it? I did something easy. At the back of the neck, I cut a slit in order to make the neckline large enough to get on and off. And this slit was bound with the bias binding. And then a hook and eye at the top finishes it up. The sleeves are then hemmed, and the lower section of the shirt is attached and hemmed as well. Okay, so I'm someone who just wants to take the easy route out, just do it as fast as possible. You probably just laughed out loud. Even though that statement is false when it comes to my sewing and costume creation, it is very true for a majority of my life. When it comes to my skincare routine, I like things fast, easy, simple, as little steps as possible. That's why we're talking about today's sponsor, which is Foreo and their LED face mask. This is the FAQ 202. It is a simple thing to add to a skincare routine because it's just super easy and convenient to pop on and let it do its thing while you get other stuff done. And so that takes the efficient part. It has a lot of different benefits, from reducing signs of aging, brightening skin, and lessening sunspots, and the list goes on. And for me lately, I've been going way less makeup than I usually do, and that means less covering up my skin, which is great, but also makes me want to make sure my skin is staying nice. And also, they have a super easy to use app where you can choose different treatments, which goes through different wavelengths of the LED light to achieve the different benefits that you're looking for. And so you can swipe through those different options, or you can also just control which light you want at that particular time. And the best part is, right now you can get an additional 30% off on their website on almost all of their products, including products that are already discounted. So use the code 30Isabella on their site to receive that 30% discount. And then you can also click the link in my description to get to their website. And again, use the code 30Isabella. And now let's get back to the part of my personality that does not take the easy way out. Now it's time to move on to the actual outer skirt. This is made of a red wool. A red that was the right shade, but unfortunately ended up being a much heavier weight than I expected. After looking for more options, I gave up the search and decided this would just have to do. You don't realize how uncommon some shades of red are until you're looking for a specific one. But anyway, it will do. It just has a slightly stiffer drape than what hers has. The pattern is just a basic gored skirt and is constructed as you would expect, except for the front side seams. These are just partially sewn to create the slits. For the waistband, I had some heavyweight silk fabric and decided to use that to create a double-sided waistband instead of using the wool because it's so thick. For that same reason, I clipped all the seam allowances at the waist of the skirt to help reduce some bulk. Cutting this fabric at an angle with the scissors creates an angle to the fabric, which helps eliminate a hard edge from one layer of fabric to where it's two layers, aka a seam allowance. Once the waistband is prepped, the outer edge is attached to the skirt, and the back edge is then aligned and sewn in place with the stitch in the ditch method. After getting some clasps attached, it's off to some of the final touches. The hem is evened out, but not sewn yet. First, it needs the design. So for the border of the skirt, which is really hardly noticeable, there's only a couple pictures that you can tell that it's there. Because of that, I've decided that I'm going to screen print the border along the skirt with metallic gold paint. This is a possibility because with it going on wool, it's not gonna go on really starkly. Here's a test that I did. I didn't quite do it enough, so it's a little too faint in a couple areas, but you can see that it's a more subtle look, which because you don't notice it very much, like in the movie, you hardly know it's there. I think it's a good option because it creates that subtlety of it. With embroidery, which I've seen people have opinions that it was embroidery, I feel like you would notice it more, but also you don't see any puckering of the fabric around that area. Now, embroidery doesn't always pucker your fabric, but because of adding thickness to the fabric and the idea of if it's a satin stitch or whatever, it's creating extra bulk down there, which is gonna pull the fabric differently than if the fabric was just fabric. And so because of that and the fade look of it, I figured that printing it was a very good option, and also it saves a lot of time. And with this paint, it's a Speedballs paint, I find that it doesn't really inhibit the flow of the fabric, which is also really important. I designed based on the blurry photos that you could see. Definitely took inspiration from those angles that you've got going on. And then I used the same symbol that I drew for the bodice of the purple dress, kind of tried to make it tulipy inspired, just because that is her flower for this. This is a design that I will have available to download on my website, as well as patterns and all that for these projects. So I've done a test, so I know it works. And now we're going on the actual skirt that I've made, which is always a little bit scary. But also, I haven't hemmed it, nor have I finished these edges off, because I want to be able to smoothly lay my screen down and so that it's flush with the fabric. When I get to the seams over there, it might be a little bit tricky. I'm gonna start printing and hope it looks good. Moment of truth. Ta-da! Adding this design with the metallic gold against a lush wool was such a fun moment, just with it bringing together the look and the style of the outfit. Now to fully finish it up and hem the raw edges. For the slits at the front, it's bound with a silkier fabric, and I had the perfect silk scraps from my Wanda dress that turned into bias binding for these edges. The bound edge is about 1/4 inch once it's done. That second edge of the binding, like as done before, is sewn in place with the stitch in the ditch method, which, by the way, is one of my absolute favorite techniques. I love how the stitches just sink into the fabric and end up being mostly hidden by the slight fold of the previously sewn edge. Onto the hem. Again, pulling from my fabric scraps, this is also done with a bias cut strip, and once that is pulled all the way to the back, hand sewing secures it in place. And with this thick wool, it's an easy and fast process to achieve hidden stitches. There you have it, the basic part of this outfit, which was just basic because it was fabric. And we've already talked about the leather corset, which you can find the video about that up there. And then next video, we will explore chainmail and the complexity and the frustration and the time management or lack of in that project. So until next time, go out there and learn, create, and inspire.